Hello.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ali Abbas Hamir, and I will be your host for tonight. We have a three-part series titled COVID and Beyond, aimed at looking through potential opportunities and challenges that the business world faces due to the global pandemic. Tonight, on episode 1, we'll be focusing on home businesses, specifically small and medium enterprises. Inshallah, in the forthcoming episodes in the future, we'll look at larger enterprises and, in the grand scheme of things, look at personal finances and how we can manage it. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest for tonight, Sister Jamila Hemani, founder and managing director of Dalton Interiors, a giant in interior decor and furnishings. I've had the privilege of being her student years ago, and I hope she can recall that with all my facial hair that has currently grown. Brother Ashik Sharif is our other guest for today. He was the former CEO of Raha. He has spent over 20 years with the company, starting right from as a salesperson. He left last year to pursue his own path of entrepreneurship. Thank you so much for both your time tonight. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank and acknowledge Hassan Dewji, Brother Shahid Tansi, and Brother MJ Kasim for being so instrumental in putting this program together. They are really our pioneers. COVID has left us with so many unanswered questions, especially within the business world. The United States, for instance, has recorded highest unemployment rates seen since the stock market crash of 1929. COVID has caused a global economic slowdown and has led to so many changes that we're not accustomed to, losing our jobs, working from home, high labor turnover rates, and massive declines in revenue. With that, I'd like to begin today's talk show by hearing from Sister Jamila, who will take us on a journey of our own.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So I'm going to start by talking about how COVID has brought about new opportunities. So globally, yes, I feel that COVID has brought in a lot of new opportunities where online e-commerce, online internet business, and all that has really flourished. But when it comes to Tanzania, we have a challenge. The challenge of the last mile delivery, where in other countries, if, for example, we order something online and deliveries, all locations are so well defined that we get a delivery instantly. In Tanzania, we have this challenge where there's inefficiency because the locations are not defined well. So I'm sure a lot of you will relate with me when, say, for example, I want to eat kuku and I order kuku and I have to explain to the delivery guy my home. And with Swahili, like my Swahili, where you say kata kulia, alafu kata kishoto, alafu enda kwenye dirt road, alafu itakuwa mlango nakundu, and ongea na askari, and then the askari calls me up, so it's a hassle. So this is one of the primary challenges of flourishing. I mean, people taking advantage of e-commerce, where it's flourished in other countries. We have challenges here. However, when it comes to things like health and food, essentials, we see a lot of people paying through mobile money. So that, yes, has grown quite a bit. But when it comes to non-essential items, say, for example, Dalton Interiors, we do soft furnishing. So definitely, there was a hit because there was this phase where the last thing that people have on their mind is buying curtains. But then over time, what did happen is when we saw this at Dalton, for example, a lot of people started buying mattresses. And we're like, okay, because now they're spending a lot of time at home. And the next thing you know, they're spending a lot of time sleeping at home and they want to be comfortable. So we had a lot of mattresses being sold. And we're like, whoa, okay. And then we had people making small offices of their own at home. So they needed better working space. So we had people getting blinds or curtains or redoing small corners of their house. So these were the smaller sales that started picking up that won there initially. However, when it came to commercial, larger orders, projects, all of those were on hold. So definitely that was affected and is affected still, slowly picking up. Being say the other part that I want to talk about is that they say that traditionally it is women who work from home. But in this case, we see a lot of men working from home too. So I think that shift we all see. A lot of men work from home and at home with the chores, yes. And I think the realization has come in for men that they do not need to, like, they can be working from home and they do not need to spend as many hours outside home at work. So that gives them the opportunity to be at home, be productive, and spend more time with family. So while the impact on business has been broadly negative, I would say that the impact on family life has been substantial. And a lot of people can relate to this, where when we're working at home and we see things that we've not seen before, we connect with family the way that perhaps we've not connected before. And so, yes, that's what I have to say about what we're going through in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Sister Javila. I think that was fantastic and very insightful on the journey. I am pretty sure sales might have gone up now that people are working from home and need a better workspace. And I guess a lot of people have more time to sleep as well. Um, I think it was also interesting when you mentioned about the community life that has been built and a family life where people are now home and notice things that they've not seen before. So thank you so much for that. And now I think we'll be moving on to Brother Ashik. You have obviously moved from working as a CEO of a company to setting up your business as stated earlier. It must have been a massive change of heart for you. We're all really, really intrigued to hear from you and what you have to say. So the floor is all yours.
Okay, well, thank you. So Jamila Bai was quite short and simple. I'm going to be slightly longer, so bear with me. Um, you know, um, I guess it's a habit when I get the floor. Anyway, so I'm not going to speak about the new journey as yet, but since it's about COVID and beyond, allow me to present this uh, in a progression of thoughts. So first, I'd like to sort of start off with 2 points. The first point being, and this is everything that the pandemic has brought us. The first point being is I've always believed that there are things you can control and things you can't control. So that's the first point. The second point is I think this I guess you lost me for a second there, didn't you? Okay. Anyway, so I'm going to be, I don't know where I was, but anyway, I said things you can control and things you can't control. And the second point being is I believe this whole experience has been a very humbling experience for a lot of us. We really can survive on bare minimum basics. You know, we've realized that the so-called best of creations were brought down to their knees by an unforeseen or an unseen pathogen. So there's a lot of reflection. I believe humbleness, gratitude is due for what we've gone through. I think it just brings a lot of realization to what we've been living like. Anyway, so before I present the challenges and opportunities, let's look at what things change. I believe it's important for the context that what we're about to speak about today, right? So I'll go quickly through it. Things that have changed according to my, I guess, research and what I noticed. Number one, interactions have changed. The way we interact with each other has changed. You know, the activities that we do has changed. Number two, our working styles have changed. I mean, look at remote education, remote meetings. We're having this event on Skype. Otherwise, we'd all be meeting in person, right? The third thing, I think priorities have shifted. We have to understand that we're going back to basics. Um, Also, a lot of us are reevaluating our spending habits, finances, right? We are just spending on what is necessary. Like Jamila Bai said earlier, that they're now looking for mattresses because mattresses are necessary. Family life has increased, right? We have spent more time with family. We've realized the small things that we've missed and how important they are for our lives. I believe health consciousness is on the high, right? Business models are changing upside down. And finally, for me, about the things that have changed is a lot of forced entrepreneurship is coming about. So a lot of people didn't have to go to work or were laid off. And so they thought about how do we now make a living, which is forcing people into entrepreneurship. I also want to quickly touch into the things that were, or the industries that were affected. And I'll go through them very quickly. Travel and tourism, hospitality, retail industry, shops and malls, entertainment, cinema, concerts, luxury goods, restaurants. Well, now they are open, but with social distancing. So you're losing a lot of good asset space there. Sports is changed. We now have started football with no spectators. Real estate, construction, convenience transport like Uber has changed. Investments have changed. But I also want to note that there are a lot of winning industries. While we're speaking, people who are in these industries have seen the rise in sales. So number one is digital and virtual products. We have healthcare that's going up. We have insurance that is booming right now. We have nutrition and healthy lifestyle, mental well-being, mental health is important, is on the rise. Online coaching, training, that's on the rise. Data science is like Internet of Things, like machine learning, AI. These are all going quite high. Contract economy. So things like instead of employing people, you want to give them projects. Once they complete the project, they earn from it. Marketing services, e-commerce, food business, agriculture, all these things are going up. So with that context, now let's go into the challenges. I believe that SMEs and startups have been the most affected in this pandemic globally, uh, especially when trading is on the low, when supply chains have been interrupted, when we have partial lockdowns or complete lockdowns. Um, these have all affected sales and revenues of businesses, and in some cases affected people's jobs and got them terminated. If I talk about specifically Tanzania, I believe the lack of lockdown, if I would say, has certainly helped. Otherwise, I think we would be worse off um, for some businesses again. So, what are the core challenges that I see the pandemic has brought about? Number one, for SME, small businesses, and startups is finance planning, financial planning, money problems. I mean, as it is when you are an SME or a small business, cash is vital to your survival. And because of everything going on the low, I think financial planning has been key. And those businesses that didn't plan well or didn't have a backup plan struggled or suffered. I believe the other challenge that was brought about during the pandemic is human resources. As it is in Africa or East Africa or Tanzania specific, we're already struggling with skilled human resources. And to have people working from home, that is just not in our culture. I mean, we tried, but it is a slow progress curve, I would say. So that was quite challenging. Resources working from home. Um, Markets that are shrinking because customers are not willing to spend on non-essential things, right? Also, SMEs and startups that are not willing to adapt quickly is the key word here, have a big challenge because what you used to do pre, I guess, COVID, you can't do it the same way, or you need to do it faster or better. And finally, I think the biggest challenge for SMEs and startups is their growth is going to take longer than they had planned for. And that is going to be a really tough thing to go through. If you look at the opportunities, and I'd like to call it good news, because things are on the down low, I believe the SMEs and the small businesses and startups spend less money, which means they burn less, which means they can be more wiser about how as it is they're lean, but how can they get more leaner, right? Let go of non-essential services. So for example, there were a lot of landlords, commercial property landlords, who are willing to give their customers a discount, or give them off, or rent holidays for for a couple of months or whatnot, while COVID was going on its peak. The other opportunity is going to be, everyone wants to get back to business, so things are easing out, things are easing up, and everyone is going to go out there more aggressive. So there's going to be many interactions between companies and businesses, and people are going to need services. I believe the upside of this is SMEs and small businesses have learned that what sustainable growth is all about, and you can't have only one plan. There must be a redundant plan. There must be a backup plan. I think this pandemic has taught us all that. I believe technology got a huge boost. So there's a lot of things that is on the up in terms of technology. I mean, there are people who would never have meetings over Zoom or over the internet, whether they had security concerns or they're too lazy to learn how to do it through new methods or new mediums. So technology has a huge boost. I think there's going to be a lot more opportunity there. I believe some SMEs and small businesses were smart enough to use this pandemic time to improve their processes. I mean, business is all about people, products, and processes. So they improve their processes, they improve their products. I believe this has also taught a lot of SMEs to sort of adopt a culture of innovation, which means you have to continuously innovate, change, be better than you are, be unique, bring that wow factor to your business. So, but I think overall the pandemic, when we relate it to SMEs, small businesses, and startups, is a positive, because compared to bigger businesses, they are more agile. They can make changes quickly. They can cut off things quickly. They're smaller in size. They can change course. So it's been, I believe it is a lot more positive than negative for SMEs, because you believe it or not, everyone is going to need services. Everyone is going to need products. Everyone is going to need, I guess, whether you call it needs or wants. And things are going to improve and things are going to change. But I will want to make 3 last points before we go into question and answer. I'm sure, sorry, this is slightly longer. So the most important thing, number one, there's a very high likelihood that any business that is focusing on some sort of behavior that this pandemic has brought about is going to be a next big thing for sure. That I can tell you. So anyone who's listening out there, focus on the new behaviors that we've got from this pandemic, and how you can turn that into a business. That's going to be a big one. There's 3 points that I would leave for SMEs or small businesses and startups that they need to do to survive this and grow and scale up. Number one is diversify. You need to have more than one product line or one product mindset or business to be able to get through this. Diversification is one of the biggest, strengths that you can have as a business. The second thing is improve adaptability speed. It's not only about change, but how fast are you willing to change and how fast are you changing? That's the second thing. And the final thing for me is focus on products that address, again, new behaviors. I say that in my earlier statement. New behaviors, change fast, and diversify. Those are my 3 points that I leave for small, medium businesses and startups.
Well, at the start, you said that you might be a bit longer, but as you went along, we're always yearning for more. And there was a lot of great information. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. There's a lot of great things you did mention. In fact, one thing that I would like to raise is that Zoom actually on February 1st was trading at about $76 on the stock market. Today, it's trading at $254. So that has been a really big power move. And technically, because of the whole COVID situation, people transitioning to online methods, that's one thing that has really raised. You even mentioned the core challenges that some businesses face, like financial planning and how some small and medium enterprises do not have enough disposable income when unforeseen circumstances like this come about, and they don't know how to deal with this. So for that, I'm pretty sure that some of these small and medium enterprises could take some of your advice about going more lean and agile and trying to reduce or eliminating most of the waste that they do not necessarily need, as we are going through this small recession at the moment. So all that information is really great, and we really appreciate the insight that you had for us. Thank you so much.
Glad to be useful.
We'll now be transitioning to our next phase, which is our question and answer session. I would just like to say, though, I'm so glad that even though football is without fans nowadays, we at least have crowd effects on our televisions. So we don't feel like we're missing out that much. So for the Q&A session, I'll be addressing my questions first to Jamila Bai, and then a few set of questions with Brother Ashik. So Jamila Bai, obviously during the whole pandemic and also off Ashik presentation, we did get a little insight that there is room for innovation. People can if you take the right chances, they can use this culture to innovate. So do you potentially see a bright future for startups, given you are one of the few women entrepreneurs that we have in Tanzania? What would you have to say for other people, other women who aspire to run their own businesses?
So, to startups, like Ashik said, that if we're able to study the behavior because of COVID and make use of the current situation and come up with an idea that would go boom, excellent. I have been in business for 15 years, so startups is not really, I might not be the right person for that, Ashik would. What I have seen is currently, in the current situation, startups require a lot of capital. They require huge capitals, and they could go wrong, they could go right. But again, like I said, Ashik would be a better person to ask about startups. Alhamdulillah, I am amongst the few women when it comes to business in our community, and I would like to share my experience being a woman in business. So what I'd say is first to women that I've often been asked, how is it being a woman in business? How is it? Do you feel that you're treated differently because you're a woman? I personally do not see myself as a woman in business. I see myself as a business person who happens to be a woman. So I do not feel like I'm treated differently. Yes, there are times when I feel that people might be speaking to me in a slightly different way because I'm a woman, or maybe looking down at me, but that could happen to a man as well. So what I do in a situation like that is I continue talking professionally, and very soon I see the shift and doubt turns into respect. So women who want to go out there and start up or work or be out there, I think that really helps when you don't see yourself as a woman, see yourself as a business person and who happens to be a woman, and that really helps. So it's been smooth. I haven't had such hurdles. I feel the key word here is for women, for everyone, not just women. The key word for business people is balance. And it's all about how we can bring our work experiences home, how we can enrich the lives of our family in the process. Because now that you're going out and you're exposed and you have more experiences, you're able to add value to your life and to the ones around you. And we end up teaching more responsibility to our children as well in the process. By actually, so in summary, as long as you have a balance in what you're doing, you realize that the journey is enjoyable and satisfactory. So speaking of the current situation, for example, when we're going through this situation that we're in, you're in a situation, like Ashik said, that there are things that are in our control and there are things that are not in our control. So we know that the situation that we're going through is not in our control. So we can only do so much. We can upgrade our skills, we can make the most of the situation, and we can keep going. And when it comes to startups again, I think that question should be for Ashik. I hope I've answered your question.
You definitely did. So upgrading our skills is definitely something that we can do. As you said, we're not in control of what happens around us. We're only in control of what we are in control of. So looking at the current trends with COVID-19 currently, what would be one or two main advices that you have for entrepreneurs?
I think two main advices I would say. One is cut costs where you can without affecting the customer experience by too much. We ourselves have gone through all our expenses, say, oh, this is not necessary, this is not necessary, let's trim this down. So we need to definitely watch our costs at this point and trim out what is unnecessary without, very crucial, that we do not affect our customer experience too much. And the other thing I would say is don't stop growing. Do not stop growing. Keep thinking of innovative ideas so that when you come back and people are ready to buy, you're out there equally or more strong. Another thing is that we can negotiate with our suppliers, get better credit terms. A lot of people are understanding because we're all in this together. So we will find people are understanding, and we have rents also. A lot of landlords have cut down on rents or given us better, they've been more lenient. And another very important thing is keep your customers informed and keep a very robust relationship with your customers. So if there are delays, if there are issues because of situations that are beyond your control, keep your customers in the loop and be there. Be there and keep growing.
I believe that customers are quite an important, actually one of the most important stakeholders we have in a company. So yeah, the advice we definitely got from you is that do not compromise on the customer experience, because if you lose that, you've kind of lost a lot of your business.
Exactly.
And
So,
just keep growing.
My
So
advice is universal advice: two things: keep costs low and don't stop growing. That's it.
obviously, with the whole pandemic, Ashik and you also have mentioned a lot of challenges that you have faced. You know, for instance, working from home, working remotely, high labor turnover rates. But what in specific, what major challenges as an entrepreneur have you faced with the whole COVID situation?
Are you asking me or?
Yeah, I'm asking that to you. Yeah, it's my bad. I might have addressed it.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
So I'm saying that with the whole COVID situation, there's been a lot of challenges that we have faced that have been mentioned. Some that you have mentioned, some that Ashik has mentioned, like working remotely, high labor turnover rates, inefficiencies that have led because of that. What are the main challenges or two main challenges that you have faced in the whole Corona situation?
Um, I think one of the challenges, one main challenge has been to obviously to maintain the safety and the well-being of and our customers. So we have what we've done is we have implemented all the safety procedures and communicated that with our clients, so they know that the working environment is safe and it's safe for customers to come in. That's been a challenge, and that's how we have overcome it, by doing what we can and overcoming it by letting our customers know. So the challenge, I'd say, is you want to maintain the safety and the well-being of your clients, of your employees and your customers. At the same time, worse is being able to generate enough income to cover the expenses. So that's been the challenge. Because and to keep employees motivated. So what happens is, in this situation, what I've noticed, what we all have noticed as leaders or entrepreneurs, is that the employees look at you and they get this energy from you, and what you feel is how they behave very often. So for example, when we go to work and we see employees have fear of losing their jobs, fear of losing loved ones, insecurity. So at that time, there's this extra kindness, extra understanding, um, extra energy that we need to go to work with, no matter what our stress is, and go there, be there, and motivate them, and just keep going. Take one day at a time. That's it.
Absolutely, that is great. I think it's always key to generate enough income so you can keep up with your day-to-day costs, and at the same time, with Corona, it really becomes difficult to maintain the safety with all the precautions that need to be put in place. So I assume that maybe employment at Dolson, for instance, may have been affected during the Corona phase because globally there's been a lot of high labor turnover rates. How have you managed with that, or is there a right strategy that you have implemented to deal with unemployment rates?
I've dreaded this. I used to dread having to lay off people because that's the last thing. We're struggling. We're all struggling. And laying off somebody means now they're left without income to go home and feed their families. So Alhamdulillah, we've managed through this without laying off anybody because of COVID. What we did is we maintained the same salaries for the junior staff, and for the senior staff, what we did is there was a haircut. We had to reduce on salaries. We had an open policy where they had the option of staying at home and working, because obviously a lot of them had elderly at home, and they were afraid that because of them coming to work, they were putting the elderly at threat. Like Ashik said, working from home here did not work that great, neither did it for us, especially when you're selling interior furnishing. You need them to be there, showing the fabrics, showing the materials, creating together. Um, so the salespeople did their best. The senior staff did their best and did what they could from home. And the junior staff, actually, when I went and I'd speak to them and I said, what do you want to do? This is a situation where we're all learning together, we're confused, and they would be like, Dada, don't close, we need our work. And then I go back and say, no way are we laying off anybody here, we got to do our best and keep going. So alhamdulillah, we work through this together, and now the things are. And what happened is, one by one, I could see salespeople coming back to work. Like they were home for a month, 2 months, and then they'd give me a call. I'm depressed at home. I need to come back. Please come back. I'm waiting for you. And now things are nice, and we're back to work. So inshallah, things from here should keep going ahead.
I'm sure it's not a very appeasing sight when you have to fire people and know that they have to feed people back home and they have people to take care of. It's probably one of the saddest moments to go through in anyone's life.
So firing because of inefficiency is another thing, but
Another thing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, but firing because of a situation like this is difficult. It's something that you don't want to be the person being responsible for, or you want to. At this point is when they rely on you, and you want to be able to support them. And at that point, if you're like, go, I can't afford you, that's hard. That's really hard.
Absolutely. There's in your field, like Dolson seems to have capitalized on the market. Do you see any opportunities in your field that our community members can consider to get into, for instance, if there is any?
Yes, for sure. I feel that there's a huge gap of good contractors. There are a lot of contractors, but good contractors who can, apart from putting up the four walls, give you the kind of finish, interior contractors especially. So if that is something definitely that people could look into, and there's a huge gap for that, I feel.
I appreciate all the responses to the questions. Thank you so much. I'll be transitioning over to Ashik for your questions. Before I do so, we have a viewer online who has a question. He says that currently there's a lot of high stakes with coronavirus, and there's the whole analysis paralysis that people cannot make decisions due to overthinking. How can they breach that obstacle? Is there a certain way, or what's your advice for people who cannot make decisions because they're kind of too worried about making a wrong one or going south with the decision that they make with COVID?
Is that a question for me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I would say there is no, we're all going through this the first time. There is no decision that can be 100% right or 100% wrong. Based on the information that you have and following your gut feeling and your heart, you do what feels best at that time and take it a day at a time. There have been times in the morning when I'd wake up and I'd say, man, I need, like, I've had like family members of staff passing away due to COVID. And I mean, like, I think we need to close. Are we putting everybody at risk here by operating? Would we rather be closed? And by evening, I'm like, no, we let's just keep doing this. So I think we take a day at a time and do what best we can.
I think we're not going to know what's right or wrong until we finally do it. And hence, we always have to go with our gut feeling. So I would like to transition off that same question to Ashik and see what his input or his advice would be for a person who suffers through overthinking or is unsure of about a decision to make during coronavirus.
So the biggest, um, I would say, the biggest problem with any leader is lack of decisions. The only way to get through that is to make a decision. If you're unsure, make a decision. There's two things, two outcomes. Either you're right or you're wrong. You're wrong, you learn what not to do. You're right, you moved ahead. So um, I understand there are complex things at play here. I understand we're all going through this for the first time, but it's the leader's job. I mean, you are a leader for a reason. If it was easy, everyone would do it. So, and it's your responsibility to make that decision. So, for me, it's as simple as take the decision or make the decision. You learn or you'll grow.
I think that perfectly ties in with what Jamila Bai was saying is that if you are successful, you grow, and that's kind of a goal of an entrepreneur. And if you're not, you learn, and that's still a form of growth in some way. So I may have asked this; it might be sort of a repetitive question, but what challenge has this pandemic brought to small medium enterprises? What exact challenges do you think that has been brought by this pandemic?
So I think I addressed this earlier, but if you want me to expound upon those challenges, so look, I think most startups or SMEs think that when you start your business, and if I were to draw imaginary graph, this being the money or revenue or energy, and this being the time, you would go this way, right? Most SMEs or most startups think that, yeah, I've got a brilliant idea. Everyone has ideas, by the way. And once I go into it, it will be this way. But it's not that way. It's actually this way. Okay, so when you start, you're going to need a lot of money, resources, furniture, office space, working tools, software, and that's your pre-startup phase. You're going to go through a phase where now you have to look for customers, and it may take you longer than expected. That's where you need to now sustain your business. If you don't have enough capital, then there's something called the valley of death that we dip into, and a lot of businesses or SMEs don't get out of there. And then once you get out of there is what we call the growth phase. Now that's on normal or in normal terrain. That's the graph. In the pandemic, I'm sure that's 10 times worse. So all I can tell you is any business, I think we take a few things for granted. Number one is to generate enough interest and leads for your business. I'm a salesperson by heart. So I believe if you plan your leads well, and if you're consistent in and disciplined in gathering leads, which means your potential customers, your prospective customers, that gives you enough of a funnel or a pipeline that you can close that business week on week, month on month. So a lot of people don't plan their revenues, and the growth of their business well. And when things go wrong 10 times, it hits them 10 times. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is if you already have a cycle whereby you are disciplined and consistent in the way you're going out to look for new business, I guess it gives you some buffer when things don't work out well. And I spoke about it earlier, to diversify. So again, don't only have one plan. I mean, if your plan A fails, there's 25 other alphabets in the 25 other letters in the alphabet. I guess I answered that. I suppose so.
Yeah, absolutely. I recall at the start of your talk, you said how important the culture of innovation is so key, especially at the moment. As how can people or companies kind of adapt to the new e-businesses, especially small and medium enterprises, because the circumstances that we're in, we're more compelled to make those changes instead of willingly wanting to do it. So how can we adapt to these new changes for e-businesses?
So I just remembered a question that was asked. And I think it turned out to be a joke that all the big corporates have been talking for the last few years about digital transformations and how companies must undertake that mission to transform themselves. And it has been a process, and I think the question was, what accelerated digital transformation in your business? Was it your CEO? Was it your CTO? Was it your CIO? Or was it COVID? And again, the most famous answer was COVID. Again, going back to your question, which means that what can I believe the businesses do to continue in this path of innovation and create, I guess, new ideas? So first and foremost, let me tell you that not every business can get online, right? I mean, I'm trying to think of a business that you can't do online. Construction, you can't do construction online. Okay. So there are businesses that have the ability to be agile enough or to be forward thinking enough to be online. So things like retail shopping, things like grocery shopping, things like things, restaurant business. All these things can move online. Now, if I speak about Tanzania in specific, I think there's a number of things that are at play here. Number one, as a business, are you willing, are you ready to go online? Which means you may not have an online platform, so you may have to use an existing platform, which means you may have to give away part of your revenue, so because you're now selling it through a third party. Number two, are there enough logistics or infrastructure enough in terms of making this delivery happen on time? Jamila Bai gave us an example of how she orders kuku and how she usually struggles with giving out direction. Again, because we don't have the right infrastructure. I mean, I don't know if we even show up that well on Google Maps or Apple Maps. So it's still being updated. So I think our challenges are multiple folds in terms of how do we adopt online. But that shouldn't be an excuse. If you're the first mover, like we said, if you're the first mover, there's a certain advantage in this. But it only works if all of us work together. And we will fail 9 times, and the 10th time we will succeed. So I think that question, I may not have answered it completely because it's really relevant to the industry, to the infrastructure, to the resources that you have, and supporting resources that, whether it's your local government, your your policies, your regulations, right?
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of environmental factors that tie in while making that decision, and that just kind of depends from
Absolutely.
business to business and customer to customer or service to service. I think also Jamila Bai did mention the cuckoo example, and I think that there is certainly a zoning and a geographical mapping that certainly we're kindly slightly behind in Tanzania that we need to build on. I know you said this earlier that you would not want to discuss about your new venture today because you're focusing on COVID and the situation. But tell us, technopreneur, what's your biggest challenge with your new venture? Just one of your biggest challenges you
I
face.
suppose I have to give you context. My new venture is a transformative agency. It really stems from my passion of developing people and businesses. We help businesses, specific focus on digital tools and small, medium businesses to scale up, which means to grow. So I will do everything from business consulting, sales consulting, to digital marketing, helping them go and evolve through their business and have that growth that they're looking for. Again, we also take on software development. So that's in a nutshell of what I'm doing. Biggest challenge is, I think, my challenge for the longest of time, and that's why it's my passion, has been human resource or lack of. Um, I strongly believe that, as I said earlier, businesses uh, are really about your products, and products are really about solving a problem. And solving a problem is really about people because you're solving people's problems. And ultimately, everything is about people. So um, I believe the lack of skills on HR is the biggest challenge, pre, within, or post pandemic. And I think that will be one of the biggest challenges that I see that aids to stagnation or lack of growth for any business. And I gave you an example of how working from home was a challenge. I mean, it's not like we don't want to do it. Um, it's all to do with we're not disciplined enough. We don't have enough discipline in terms of making sure that we work when we're supposed to work and deliver when we're supposed to deliver. We have issues of not being organized enough. So for me, the biggest lack has always been and will be skilled HR.
Yeah, I think that clearly gives us some good insight on it. I know that you said that, and also Jamila actually shares the same opinion with you that working from home has not been one of the greatest productive boosts for businesses. But if you were going to implement it, or if a company wants to implement working from home as an option, how can this concept be properly reinstated, or is there any advice to like promote its efficiency from working from home? Obviously, I know this would depend from industry to industry, but is there any general advice that you have?
Do you want to go first? Should I go first? Okay, so again, industry to industry, there are things, skills. So, for example, if you're a coder, if you're a software developer, if you're a designer in creative industry, these are all things that you can do from home. Having said that, so a side point. Sorry, I'm diverting a little bit here. One of the biggest things I feel most of us did, I hope people did, I did, things while we were at home, right? So that we can make ourselves more valuable. Now, that goes back to us using those skills to enhance our remote working environments or adaptations that we have to make. So I think it's a lot to do with our mindset, and we're creatures of habit. I believe working from home, and I'll give you a tip for everyone who has the opportunity to work from home. If I was a creative person who was working from home, I actually would have 3 jobs instead of one. Because realistically speaking, my job output in a day, if I'm at the office, I'm there from 8:30 to 5:30. It's about 8 to 9 hours approximately. Takes me an hour or two to commute back and forth from my home. But if I'm home, I wake up at 8. I take on a job for employer number one, work for 3 hours, deliver that, take a break of half an hour to an hour, go and work for employer number two, take 3 hours, deliver that job, take a break for 30 minutes to an hour, take on employer number three. Imagine you could have 3 jobs working from home if you're only disciplined enough, if you pick up the skills, if you have the right equipment and infrastructure to do that. So my tips would be, yes, we can make this happen. It really depends on the team that you have and the kind of industry you are in, really.
Jamila, boy.
Yes, so it does depend a lot the kind of industry that you're in, and it does depend on yourself as well. So when it comes to industry, like Ashik said, you cannot construct from home. So likewise, at Dawson, we make sofas, we make curtains, we make blinds. We can't make the sofas and the curtains at home. We need to be at the workshop. We need to be at the factory. And we do, and it is very much custom made. So we need to be at the place. So with this industry, it's a bit challenging unless you have ready furnishing, where this is what we deliver, kind of thing. Another thing is discipline. If we're able to have the discipline to be actually work at this time, do what we got to do at that time, that would help a lot. Myself, I'm the kind of person who is fueled by people and movement, and I need to be in the middle of action. So for me, didn't work that well. I had to really, really, really discipline myself, and I preferred being in the middle of everything. So another thing I feel is upgrade. Yes, upgrade your skills. It's we're all going through a lot of struggle in some way or the other. A lot of people have lost jobs, and a lot of people are struggling. Um, Take this opportunity to upgrade your skill and be a more valuable employee to your future, a more valuable to your future employee. So that's what I'd have to say.
I think that is great. I think that kind of ties on all our questions for today. Definitely, discipline and motivation is really essential for one to be successful, and I think Ashik did mention that. And for instance, Dawson is very customer oriented, so having individuals kind of select their nitty gritties and their details is very important. And if you can't really facilitate for that, that can really cause a large problem.
There was a way in which we could actually give the feel and the texture of the fabric through online. We'd have a client say, "Send me a picture." I send the picture. I send a video. How does the fabric feel? Okay. How soft is it? How hard is it? So all this is so detailed and so custom made that. And also when customers walk in and you have that conversation with them and you talk, understand exactly what they want, their taste, all that comes with that interaction, face to face, meeting them, seeing the options. It's a different industry for sure.
Absolutely. Obviously, there's things that we are in control of and things that we're not in control of. That is something that we've definitely established over the course of this show. However, the coronavirus has given us some unprecedented situations, but it has taken out the good from us. We have had some more opportunities to spend time with our family, our loved ones, engage with them more, learn about things that we probably never knew about them when we have been like 10 meters away from them for all these years. So that's definitely something that we have learned. And we've been humbled by, even though we call ourselves the greatest creation, a small pandemic like this has caused a global ruckus, and we have been humbled to us. And with that, I'd like to also mention some few tips that we have been given by our two guests today about the core challenges. Obviously, financial planning is really essential. Small and medium enterprises may not have the largest amount of disposable income at their expense. So sometimes making sure that you have planned for at least a year or a couple of years in advance would be a good way to go about things. And working from home in Tanzania, from the two of yours input, seems to not have been the greatest success. But for individuals that are compelled to, you can give it an opportunity, and depends on the industry you come from, you can alter that and kind of adapt to the changes that we have. At the same time, we are not expecting a lot of people to spend that much money on luxury goods. We're expecting them to save their money and save it only on necessities. Hence, as a company, it's quite important to reduce and eliminate waste through agile and lean processing methods. I think that was also really well established for us. And one thing that I can definitely put this whole show together is that keep growing and don't stop growing. And if you fail, that's a form of growth. A culture of innovation is always important to adapt to unforeseen circumstances like we have this time around, and we don't know what we're expecting in the future. So we always have to be prepared for instances like this. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, and all our viewers online, we would like to thank you for participating and joining us today. Thank you, Jamilaba, and thank you, Ashik, so much for all the input and information you had for us today. It was really insightful and really great. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank